Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and this is a video in the series that I call Ask Consciousness Anything. And the purpose of this series is to invite you to a living inquiry so that you can discover in your own direct experience the truth of who you are. Now, why would this matter? This matters because most of us are conditioned to believe that we are separate things. We are conditioned to give our full attention to our mind most of the time, and we are completely consumed by the war with our own thinking. And we don't even, for the most part, realize that, or at least realize the implications of that. And so when we discover the truth of who we are, we end the war within. Really, all of the inner conflict that you may live your life struggling with can truly come to an end. There is absolutely no need whatsoever for you to be giving your attention to the content of mind and its battles and struggles, and for you to believe that that has anything whatsoever to do with you. So really, truly, this is about waking up to inner peace, and this is about then living that peace so that finally we can have world peace. Now, most of us are so cynical that we don't believe that world peace is even possible, but really it has to be. It has to be. I have children, maybe you have children. The time has come that we just cannot hide our heads in the sand any longer and hope that it's all going to go away and get better. It's time for us to take responsibility by ending the war within so that we can show up in the world living peace, and we can be real living examples of what's possible. And it's only through that real transformation can take place, not only in your life, but within the world. So today's question, which is right over here, I'm going to read it and then I'll get right back to you. It says, for people new to this message, I'd like to see a post where the apparent you that is being addressed is unpacked. I know it's a semantic issue, but the mind hears it as if it's being addressed. And because most are listening as if they're the mind, this gets reinforced. So this is true, and this is important. So you can just check in and notice how it is that the mind is always suggesting that there's something that you need to get or get rid of in order to finally be okay. And it's because of this inner battle, all in the mind, that we go seeking for something. And for most of us, that starts out as just trying to achieve worldly success. We try to improve ourselves. We try to improve our circumstances. And eventually, perhaps we get somewhat disillusioned with that, and then we go seeking in the spiritual realm. And so we go seeking for spiritual things, and we eventually maybe land on wanting spiritual enlightenment because we have heard or believe that spiritual enlightenment, if we can get that, that will give us what we finally need in order to be okay. And you can see that all of that is always based fundamentally on the assumption that there's a problem now, there's something wrong, and we need to do something about that in order to finally be okay. So we're always starting with the assumption that okayness is not here now. And because of that, and not only because of that, but it goes hand in hand with the fact that we're consulting the mind to tell us about this. And if you take a look, you'll see that this is what you've been doing out of habit most of your life, certainly most of your adult life. Most of us are conditioned to give our attention to the mind to tell us about what's happening. And the most significant mistake that we make is when we turn to the mind to tell us who we are. And all that the mind is capable of doing is giving us commentary. It can label, it can give us stories, it can tell us about the past, and it can try to draw comparisons between present and past. And it can try to project that into the future, and then it comes up with hopes or it comes up with despair. But you can see that that's what's been running the show. And you can see that underneath that, actually, if you inquire right now, you'll notice that there's always been the sense that something's off, something's not quite right. And no matter how good your life gets, this sense that there's something off is always here, at least a little bit. And this is what means that even when we are experiencing relative peace, there's always this little sense of anxiety or something not quite right that seems to kind of undermine that okayness. And this is what leads many of us to grow cynical. But also, at the same time, many of us have had experiences of transcendence. Many of us have had experiences of silent mind. Many of us have had experiences of awe or wonder, whether that's in nature or when your child was born, or in meditation or psychedelics or a good meal or going for a walk, or just spontaneously. Maybe even right now, you could just check in and notice that prior to any thought, prior to any sensation, prior to any story or analysis or anything, prior to any experience whatsoever, there's stillness, there's silence, there's awareness. And the mind has commentary about that. The mind has opinions about that. The mind might have judgments. The mind might even judge, I'm not even sure that's even happening. The mind might say, I can't find that. My mind isn't silent, the mind will say. And that's all totally fine, but prior to any of that, just a split second before any of that, you can notice that you're already here, you're already aware. And this awareness is what you overlook because you are constantly giving your attention to the mind. And you might even notice that you do it even now, that you might turn and recognize just for a split second that yes, there is awareness. I am aware. I am here. And you might even inquire, let's say, long enough to notice some qualities about your true nature. You might notice that your sense of yourself prior to any thought is spacious, open, free. And then what happens is the mind arises, and we give our attention to mind, and we overlook the spaciousness of silent awareness that's always here. But in any moment, you can take a look and you can recognize that this is actually always the case, that always you are aware. You are always here. No matter what has happened, no matter what intensity has occurred in your experience, you are always aware. And so you can start to recognize, if you just check in, that this is what has been here always. This is the most constant experience of yourself. It's the most intimate experience of yourself, and it's totally effortless. And it's possible for you to begin resting here. It's possible for you to stop seeking for okayness and to discover okayness is already here. So when we speak, and I use the word you can notice where you turn. If you turn to the mind, then the mind will present you with a story. It will present you with objects. And then you will just be trying to collect more information in order to try and resolve something at the level of mind, which will not happen. But the other option, the other opportunity is for you to turn right now and just recognize this stillness that you already are. Recognize that you are aware. And you can start to recognize that you has always referred to this. Right? This is what you've always most intimately recognized as the truth of who you are. Everything else has been added to this. And so the invitation is to begin to inquire in your life moment to moment and to begin to recognize who it is that is aware. And you will see over and over and over if you're willing to just look, and not with the mind. Don't look for an answer in mind, but just look to your direct experience and you'll see that always you are here. You are aware. Awareness is always reliable. So you can notice that this is always, always, always the case. It doesn't do any good for you to take this on as new information or a new belief. The only way that this works is if you look for yourself. You can look right now and just see that you are effortlessly aware. That doesn't mean that you understand effortlessly. Understanding is another thing. But you are effortlessly aware. And you can notice, for example, that you are aware of the sound of my voice. You cannot be not aware of the sound of my voice because you are aware. So you can notice that awareness is that effortless. And then you can start to notice that actually you are aware that you are aware. So this awareness of awareness is the key of self-recognition, self-realization, is just awareness of awareness. And the more that you just tune in throughout your life, it's not a complicated thing. You don't, like I said, you don't need to learn new things. You don't need to have some new complicated practice. This doesn't require any complicated breathing techniques or mantras or stretching or mudras or anything. This is very simple, very, very simple. Anybody can do this. All that's required is throughout your life, and particularly you can allow all seeming suffering, struggle, pain, discomfort. All of this can actually be like an alarm bell that goes off, and as it goes off, it's just this little alarm that just is a reminder to just take a look and see right now, are you aware? And if you really check it out honestly, you have no choice but to recognize that you are aware that you are aware. That's the trick of this, is that it actually subverts the mind, because it forces you to notice what it is that's always aware. You become aware of awareness. So if you're just trying to collect information in the mind, none of this will ever work for you. But the good news is that you don't have to do that. You don't have to make any effort. You don't have to learn anything new. All you have to do, really, honestly, I give you my word, is just look over and over in your life and just check it out and see. And you'll see that you are always here, always aware. This is totally reliable, and everything else comes and goes. Now the mind doesn't know what to do with that. But that's okay, because the mind does not get the answer to this. The mind does not need an answer to this. The mind, it would be a total mistake for you to try to find the answer in mind. So just be willing not to touch the mind. And at first that seems scary to some people only because of the identification with mind. And so it can seem like a kind of death. It can seem very vulnerable not to be consulting the mind constantly. But if you have the willingness and courage, and particularly if you're just done with suffering and you're done with the war and you're really truly willing to begin to access peace and live peace in your life moment to moment, I'm telling you that this is the way, is to finally just be willing to set down all the struggle with the mind, all the war with the mind, and make peace with the mind. And I don't know if I said this earlier, but really, don't make the mind the enemy. The mind is not the enemy. The mind is the beloved servant of consciousness. Allow the mind to be here in love. If you're to have any relationship with the mind, allow it to be one of love. But don't make the mistake of thinking that you have to consult the mind constantly. That's exhausting to you and to the mind. Don't do it. You know, it's like, how many of us like to be micromanaged? Nobody. But how many of us would love to be supported in love in whatever it is that we do, our divine purpose in life? And the truth is, all of us would like that. The mind also. The mind wants to be supported in love. It does not want to be micromanaged. So be willing finally in love to allow the mind fully to be itself and just stop getting involved, and recognize as you're going about your life, while you're driving, while you're having dinner, while you're helping your kids brush their teeth, while you're having a conversation with your boss, while you're doing your taxes. Tax day is coming up soon, right? Whatever you're doing, you can just check it out and notice right now, in just an instant, just like that. Just turn and notice, are you aware? Are you here? Do you exist? And notice that you don't need to turn to the mind to give you that answer. You can just directly notice, because this is your most intimate experience of yourself. Don't look to do something with this in mind. Don't go right back to the mind and ask the mind, did that work? Is this working for me? Is this what is it doing what it's supposed to do? Because the mind will get confused by this. Just be willing just to check it out over and over and over, and you will see that it is you as awareness, aware of yourself as awareness, always, and that that's the truth of who you are, and that that's what's going on every time you check. So that's always the invitation. And that really, truly does hold the promise of true and lasting peace, both within and without. If you have a question that you would like to ask, you can always go to joeylott.com/ask. That's JOEYLOTT.com/ask. And if you're interested in learning about my current events and opportunities to work with me and get direct coaching, you can go to joeylott.com/now, NOW. Okay, bye for now. See you next time.